The owner left the dog at intake and said he'd be back after payday. He signed a wrong line. He didn't notice. I didn't correct him. He slid the clipboard back and kept talking like I was his landlord. Payday, rent, boss holding checks. Just a few days. He tried to smile, like that fixed it. The dog sat glued to his leg, stiff, eyes tracking every sound in the lobby. I saw the surrender line. I watched his signature land on it. I should have stopped him, pointed to the other box, made him read the words. I didn't. I wanted him out of my lobby. I wanted the next problem, not this one. I walked the dog through the staff door, and he hit the end of the lead and tried to plant his feet. He threw his weight back, nails scraping tile, chest heaving like he'd already decided I was the enemy. I dragged him anyway because that's what you do in intake. You keep moving or the whole place jams up. In the back run, he turned into a siren. He barked every time anyone walked past. Big, steady barks that set off the whole row. He paced until his paws left little wet prints. He pissed in his water bowl and then drank from it anyway. He pawed shit into the corners and smeared it across the concrete. When I tried to loop a slip lead over his head, he snapped so close I felt the air move. I yanked back and swore loud, and a kennel tech laughed like that's normal. After that, people started taking the long way around his kennel. Volunteers stopped asking to walk him. The adoption counselor peeked at him once, watched him hit the gate, and walked away. The behavior guy wrote, "High arousal, redirect, risk" on the kennel card. That's how we talk when we mean this dog will bite somebody. Every hour he kept losing it. The whole building got sharper. Phones rang and nobody could hear. Adopters walked in, heard the barking wall, and walked right back out. Techs started cussing under their breath when they saw his run because they knew it meant extra cleaning, extra wrestling, extra reports. I moved his paperwork to the wrong stack. I wrote the date in the corner like it meant something. I watched the deadline pass because I wanted it to pass. The reclaim window was posted on the wall behind my desk in big print, like we were proud of it. Hold period, then property of a shelter. When that date hit, I watched the clock roll over and I didn't do anything. The owner had left a voicemail, name, number, "I'm coming Friday," and I listened to it once, then hit delete because I didn't want to hear his voice again. A coworker saw me and asked if I called him back. I lied and said he never answered. She told me I was cold. I told her to mind her own job, and we almost started yelling right there in the hall. It wasn't some big, evil plan. It was small, lazy choices. I left his file under other folders. I didn't update the software because the line was out the door and the phone wouldn't stop ringing. When the kennel tech asked me why his status was blank, I said I'd handle it, and then I didn't. She came back later and got in my face about it because she was the one scrubbing his shit smears twice a day. "I snapped to her." She snapped back. We stood there with everyone watching, both of us red-faced, and nobody stepped in because everyone's always one more argument away from quitting. Capacity meeting hit midweek. Management circled numbers on a whiteboard and said we needed space. They didn't say the word kill. They said outcomes. They said risk. They said liability. The list printed at the end of the day and got clipped to a clipboard in the med room. I saw his intake number on it and felt my stomach drop. I could have pulled the file right there, fixed the mistake, called the owner, made him come sign the right line. I didn't. I stared at the number until my eyes burned, then went back to hosing runs because it's easier to clean shit than touch guilt. He bit a volunteer the next morning. The volunteer reached in too fast, and he clamped down like a trap. Blood on the concrete. The volunteer screaming, then crying, then shaking in the lobby with her hand wrapped in gauze. Paperwork everywhere. My supervisor yelled at staff like we trained him to bite. The dog paced his kennel, panting, eyes wild, like he didn't even know he'd just signed his own death warrant. A red caution card went up. The tone shifted. No more maybe rehab. Just we can't adopt that out. They did on a day I was off. I know because the next shift I walked past his run and the gate was open, empty. I stopped like someone hit me in the chest. I opened the kennel even though it was already unlatched. I saw the empty spot. I saw the mop marks on the floor. Clean concrete. No hair. No chewed bowl. The kennel card was gone. I walked straight to records and flipped through the disposition binder until I found his intake number with initials and a stamped outcome. My mouth went dry. I didn't say anything. I just closed the binder like it was a book I'd finished. The owner came in 2 days late and asked for him by name. I stood at the counter and kept my face flat. He had cash folded in his fist, so tight the bills looked crumpled and wet. He said payday happened. He was here, he wanted his dog. The new front desk girl smiled at first, then saw my face and stopped. My supervisor drifted closer like she smelled a fire. The owner kept saying, "I'm here," like being present should reverse time. I told the desk girl I'd check and walked to the back like I could undo it by walking. I came back with nothing in my hands. I went back out and said, "We don't have him." I'll let the front desk say, "Maybe he got transferred." I'll let them offer a pamphlet. His face went blank first, like his brain refused to understand the words. Then it cracked. He asked me to check again. He asked if I was sure. He started yelling, not full screaming, but loud enough that everyone in the lobby turned their heads. My supervisor hit him with policy and told him he signed rights away. He called her a bitch. She threatened to trespass him. Security drifted closer. I kept my hands on the counter so nobody would see them shake. He kept coming back. He posted online. He brought photos. He asked staff to check again. I watched him scan the kennels like he could pull a ghost out of concrete. He learned our faces. He learned our shift times. He stood outside with flyers and shoved them at people walking in. He cornered a volunteer in the parking lot and made her cry. He argued with a tech in the hallway until the tech told him to get the fuck out. Cops showed up once, bored, and told him it was a civil issue. He laughed right in their faces and said, "Yeah, no shit, because nobody wants to own what happened." He showed up with a folder after that. He slapped the intake form on the counter and stabbed the signature line with his finger. He said nobody told him he was signing surrender. He said payday. He said Friday. He said we rushed him. My supervisor kept repeating policy like a prayer, and her eyes kept flicking toward the cameras and the lobby. The owner's hand shook. He looked straight at me, and his eyes narrowed, like he finally caught the one person who never met his gaze. He said low, "You knew." My knees went soft under the counter. I gripped the edge and kept my face blank while my supervisor shoved him toward the door, telling him he was done here. He turned back once, like he expected me to confess, and I just stared through him. Management held a staff huddle and told us not to engage him, not to admit anything, not to escalate. They treated him like a reputation problem. Staff started calling him that guy, like he was the villain. People joked about him being crazy. I laughed once, too loud, and everyone looked at me, and I felt disgusting. One night, I walked past the youth room, and the door wasn't fully shut. I saw the steel table, the blue pads, the sink, the trash can. A red slip sat on top of the trash with an intake number in thick marker. His. No name, just digits. That's what we turn them into when we're trying not to feel it. I backed away and went to the bathroom and scrubbed my hands until my knuckles burned. I started picking fights at work because I couldn't stand being quiet. I snapped at coworkers over latches and logs and overtime. I told the kennel tech she should have read the kennel card before reaching in, and she told me to go fuck myself. I told my supervisor the policy speech made her sound like a robot, and she told me if I didn't like it, I could quit. I wanted someone to stop me, to say, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Nobody did. Everyone was already drowning. At night, I'd see his posts and feel sick. Same photo, same dog, comments telling him to sue, to call the news, to burn the place down. I'd shut my phone off and still hear phantom barking in my head, like my brain kept replaying the noise so I couldn't pretend there'd been silence. I went home every night and washed my hands like it mattered. It didn't. I did it because I was tired and mean, and nobody stopped me. He slammed the trunk and fumbled the keys like his hands were rented. His kid sat in the back seat in a booster, half asleep, head lolling. I stood by the curb with my phone out and did nothing useful. The trunk thudded and the cold made it sound mean, like the car was pissed at all of us. My girlfriend stood in the doorway behind me, arms crossed, jaw tight, and I could feel her stare on the back of my neck like a hand. He'd been a loud drunk all night. He spilled beer on my carpet. He broke a coaster and laughed. He called my girlfriend a bitch. I wanted him gone. I wanted quiet. He showed up earlier with a cooler and his kid, acting like it was a normal visit, like he wasn't dragging a whole mess into my apartment. I'd known him forever. He's the guy who turns everything into a test, then laughs when you fail it. He promised he'd only have a couple. He kept pointing at his kid like proof he could handle it. Then he started pounding cans like he was trying to win a race. He got loud, then louder, touching everything, moving my stuff around, knocking into my coffee table, clattering my keys in that little bowl by the door. My girlfriend told him to slow down. He grinned at her and said she was cute when she worried. She told him to stop being a fucking problem in someone else's home. That flipped him. The grin slid off, and he went straight for her like he'd been waiting for an excuse. He called her a bitch, called her uptight, said she had that look like she thought she was better than everybody. I told him to shut up. He leaned in too close, breath hot and sour, and asked if I was really going to choose her over your boys, like we were kids again and cruelty was bonding. The kid was on my couch with his blanket, trying to disappear. He kept nodding off and jerking awake whenever his dad's voice spiked. Every time he looked at me, it felt like he expected a grown-up to do grown-up things. My girlfriend tried to move him to the bedroom with cartoons on low. The kid went, thumb in his mouth, eyes heavy. His dad kept stomping in and out of the hallway anyway, slamming drawers, narrating his anger like a sport. At some point, my girlfriend said if he didn't get it together, she was calling someone to come get them. He snapped that nobody was taking his kid anywhere. He stepped toward the hallway like he was going to drag the kid out and prove he was in charge of his own life. I got in front of him. He shoved my shoulder. Not a punch, but not nothing. My girlfriend said, real flat, that he was not driving. That word, driving, hit him like an insult. He started ranting about how he was fine, how he'd driven a million times like this, how we were acting like he was some criminal. He reached for the counter where he'd tossed his keys earlier. I moved first and put my hand over them. My palm stuck to the metal and plastic from spilled beer. He stared at my hand like it didn't belong there. Then he stared at me, eyes glassy but sharp in the mean parts. He lowered his voice and said, "Don't do this in front of him." He nodded toward the bedroom like his kid was a shield. He said if I took his keys, the kid would freak out, and that would be on me. He said if I called a ride, he'd have to leave his car, and then his boss would know. And then what? I'd pay his bills? It was all bullshit, but it came out steady like he'd practiced. My girlfriend looked at me like I was on trial. She didn't yell. She just said, if you let him drive, you're helping. And my brain did the coward math. Cops in my building, neighbors staring, him throwing a tantrum on the sidewalk, the kid hearing it all, me getting in a fight I didn't want. I hate how fast I wanted the whole thing to just end. I slid my hand off the keys. He snatched them and smiled like he'd won something. He walked to the bedroom, scooped the kid up half asleep, carried him out like luggage, and buckled him in with this annoyed, efficient motion that made it feel normal. My girlfriend said something sharp behind me, and I snapped back at her because snapping at her was easier than standing up to him. That little argument was quick and ugly. No big speeches, just two people realizing they weren't the same kind of person. Outside, he slammed the trunk, fumbled the keys again, and got in like he was late for work. I could have taken the keys. I could have called a ride. I could have stepped in front of the car. I didn't. I backed up and let the headlights swing past me. He peeled out too fast, tires chirping, and his taillights vanished around the corner like a slammed door. My girlfriend grabbed her coat and left. She didn't cry or scream. She just said she couldn't sleep next to that and walked out. The silence after was worse than the yelling. I cleaned beer out of my carpet with paper towels that came up brown. I wiped the counter like wiping could fix anything. I sat on my couch and stared at the dead TV, waiting for the text that would let me pretend I hadn't just been complicit. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with missed calls. I ignored the first one. Then I answered the second and heard panic and sirens and someone trying to breathe around crying. It wasn't him. It was some stranger's voice asking if I was the last number he called. There was wind on the line, horn blasts, and that stretched out wail of an ambulance. The person said there'd been a crash. They said his car went through the guardrail. They said there was a kid in the back. I drove without thinking. I left my apartment unlocked. I didn't grab a jacket. My hand shook so hard, I dropped my keys twice getting into my car. By the time I got close, traffic was crawling. Red brake lights smeared across the wet road. I parked far back because even in some part of me wanted distance, like distance could turn me into a bystander. I walked up and tasted metal in my mouth. I saw the smashed guardrail first, torn open like a mouth. I saw his car down the slope, tilted wrong, headlights pointing into dirt, steam rolling out of the hood like it was breathing. Then I saw the kid's blanket on the pavement like someone dropped it in a rush. That blanket made the whole thing real in a way the wreck didn't. Firefighters moved with that calm, practice speed that makes you realize they've done this 1,000 times. An EMT knelt on the shoulder with a bag open. A cop set cones like he was setting up for a work zone. They had him on the ground already, strapped to a board. His face was smeared with blood and that pale airbag dust. He kept trying to lift his head, kept slurring that he was fine, that his kid was fine, that he didn't even feel drunk. I couldn't look at him long because I could see the story forming in his eyes, the excuses stacking up, the part where this becomes something that happened to him instead of something he did. They took longer with the kid. I saw an EMT climb into the back seat and pause like he'd hit a wall. I saw a firefighter's shoulders tighten. Nobody said anything loud, but the energy shifted like everyone suddenly had to be careful with a fragile thing. When they finally carried the kid up, he was wrapped in silver and held like a package. One arm hung at a bad angle. His head lolled, not sleepy now, just loose. He made this small, thin sound that didn't match any word, and it cut straight through me. I stood there with my phone in my hand like that meant I was useful. I didn't call my girlfriend. I didn't call anyone. I just watched. A cop walked around asking who saw him leave. Clipboard, flashlight, calm voice like this was just the part where you gather the story. When he got to me, my throat closed. He asked if I knew the driver. I said I'd seen him around. He asked who saw him leave. I said I hadn't. I said I went to bed early. And while I said it, I deleted the text where he told me he was good to drive. I watched the little message bubble vanish like I'd erased the night. The cop looked at me for a beat longer than he needed to. Then someone called him over and he moved on. That was it. The world gave me an exit and I took it. He survived. His kid didn't walk right for a long time. People blamed the booze. People blamed bad luck. He got charged because the numbers don't lie, because his blood was basically a confession. His family posted about prayers and second chances. People shook their heads and said, "Idiot," and that made it easy because it kept the blame clean and contained. The kid became an afterthought in other people's mouths, a sad detail they didn't have to imagine too hard. I imagined it anyway. My girlfriend never came back. She texted once to say she couldn't stop thinking about the kid on my couch, listening to grown-ups get mean, and she didn't even see the crash. She said she hoped I learned something. I stared at that message until my screen went dark. Months later, I saw them outside a physical therapy place. The dad looked smaller, sober, worn down. He lifted the kid out carefully, gentle now in a way that made me feel sick. The kid walked stiff, like his body didn't trust itself. He tested each step like the ground might disappear. He didn't look at me. He didn't know me. That almost hurt more because it meant my guilt had nowhere to land. People moved on. They always do. They stopped talking about it once the bruises faded and the court date passed and the headlines died. I didn't move on. I keep replaying that curve in my head, the trunk slam, the keys, the kid's head falling sideways. I keep inventing versions of myself that act, versions that grab the keys and take the hit and do the hard thing. In the real version, I chose the easy thing because it protected me, and the world let me. I blamed my own relief and kept it anyway. She forgot her password twice in 1 week. I reset it. I smiled. I acted normal. Then I kept the access longer than I should have. It wasn't some hacker fantasy. I'm IT. I already had the admin console open because people break their own shit all day. When the reset screen asked if I wanted to terminate sessions, I didn't. I left her token alive. I told myself I'd close it after lunch. I didn't. I opened her calendar. I checked her locations. Not like a spy movie, just the corporate logs we all sign away without reading. Badge swipes, laptop status, meeting room check-ins. Her day laid out like a map. I learned when she left her desk. I learned when she ate. I learned who she trusted because she invited them without thinking. I didn't need to hack anything. The tools were already there. I just didn't close the window. At first, I nudged little things. I moved a room. I shifted a meeting 15 minutes. I canceled an invite and resent it so the alert hit at the worst time. She'd glance at her screen, frown, and fix it. I'd sit 2 desks away, face blank, heart thumping like I'd gotten away with something real. Then she started dating someone at work. I didn't hear it through gossip. I saw it in her calendar first. Coffee blocks that weren't with her usual people, lunches labeled private, late busy holds that ran past 6. His name started showing up. Sales guy. Loud. Always leaning on desks like he owned the air. I watched him put a hand on the back of her chair once, like it was nothing. She smiled at him and my stomach went tight, like I'd swallowed a bolt. So I pushed harder. I moved meetings. I fixed invites. I swapped time zones on one, so it showed an hour off on her phone. I changed the location on another, so half the attendees went to the wrong floor. I replaced the Teams link with an older one, so it failed right when she tried to start. I didn't delete anything big. I didn't do anything that screamed sabotage. I just made her look sloppy, one tiny cut at a time. The day of her presentation, I watched it like it was a sport. She'd been prepping for weeks. That morning, I shifted the invite, so her copy updated, but the room copy didn't. People arrived split. Messages flew. She walked into the empty room first, stopped, checked her phone, swore, then ran. I saw her jog past my desk, cheeks red, bag bouncing, trying to keep her face neutral like she wasn't panicking. When she finally burst into the right room, the VP was already there with that dead-eyed patience. She apologized too much, fumbled the HDMI, clicked the wrong slide twice, and kept saying sorry like that would glue her credibility back on. She still delivered the deck, but you could see the room decide what she was. After that, I started timing it. I'd watch her stand up for lunch, and I'd drop a last-second meeting on her calendar that looked like it came from her manager. She'd freeze, scan the room, then sit back down. Once she went to the kitchen anyway, and her manager caught her in the hallway and snapped about missing a prep call. She said she never saw it. He told her to stop arguing. She snapped back, voice tight, and he stepped closer like he wanted to win the air. She walked away shaking, and people stared at their monitors like they were suddenly fascinated by spreadsheets. She filed a ticket about weird glitches. She wrote it careful, like she didn't want to sound crazy. Screenshots, timestamps, meeting moved without my action, invite disappeared, mobile different from desktop, and one line that stuck. It's making me look unreliable. That was the point. The ticket hit our queue. I grabbed it before anyone else could. I answered it myself. I asked her to clear cache, sign out, update the app, the usual circle of bullshit. I told her it happens during backend changes. I closed it as resolved. Then I kept doing it until she stopped trusting her own schedule. She started printing her calendar and circling things with a pen. She carried a notebook like armor. She double-confirmed times in chat. She showed up early and waited outside rooms like she didn't believe the invites anymore. The sales guy started getting annoyed. I saw him do that little half laugh when she asked again if it was really at 2. She caught it. Her smile died. Later they argued near the elevators, low voices, faces tight. She shoved her phone in his hand like proof. He handed it back like she was embarrassing him, and she flinched like he'd slapped her. After that, he stopped hovering at her desk. Her manager didn't care about the cause. He cared about the optics. Miss one meeting and you're human. Miss 2 and you're disorganized. miss 3, and people start treating you like a risk. She got pulled into HR for performance. I didn't see the invite, but I saw her come back with her jaw clenched and her eyes wet like she'd swallowed it. She sat down and stared at her screen like it was a stranger. She stopped joking. She started talking in clipped bullets like she was afraid any extra word would get used against her. She came to me more after that, not because she trusted me, but because she ran out of doors to knock on. She'd stand at my desk with that notebook open, pointing at times, asking why her calendar kept changing itself. Her voice got harder each week. She said she wasn't stupid. She said she wasn't imagining it. She said she was tired of looking like a fuck-up. I kept my face calm and my tone helpful. I acted mildly offended, like I was the good guy being accused. I offered to sit with her and watch it live like I was on her side. I sat 2 desks away and helped her troubleshoot while I caused it. I'd remote in, nod, blame sync, blame Microsoft, blame known issues. I'd tell her I'd monitor it. She'd exhale, shoulders dropping like she wanted to believe me, because believing me meant she wasn't losing her mind. Then she'd walk back to her desk, and I'd wait until she put her headphones on, then change one more thing, small enough that she questioned herself before she questioned the system. She tried to protect herself. She started CCing coworkers on every invite. She asked people to confirm in writing. She showed her manager screenshots. He told her to stop making excuses. She finally blew up in a project meeting, not screaming, but sharp enough to cut. She said someone was moving her meetings and she needed help. Her manager said, in front of everyone, that paranoia wasn't a good look and she should take a day off if she couldn't handle the basics. She went silent, cheeks red, hands clenched on the notebook until her knuckles went white. And after that, she barely spoke unless she had to. She tried to escalate too. I saw the email draft in her send items when she forgot to close Outlook, and I still had the session. She wrote to my lead, asked for an audit, asked if her account needed to be rebuilt. She wrote that it felt like someone was messing with her. That line made my throat tighten. My lead forwarded it to me with one sentence. Can you handle this? I replied yes. I wrote something about user-side inconsistencies and sync. I attached a generic Microsoft article and a harmless log snippet. Then I closed the case before it could grow teeth. That night, I didn't even go home right away. I stayed late, waited for the floor to empty, and I scrubbed my own footprints the way I scrub other people's mistakes. I edited the ticket notes so it looked like a routine sync issue. I ended a few unrelated sessions so the logs had noise. I changed nothing dramatic, just enough that if someone ever bothered to look, they'd see a smear instead of finger. Then I reopened her calendar anyway, because stopping would mean admitting what I was. Next morning, she came to my desk with her notebook shaking in her hand and asked if anyone else could access her stuff. I said only admins, said it like a joke, and she didn't laugh. She stared at me for a long second like she was trying to decide if I was stupid or lying. Then she walked off without saying thanks. After that, she stopped smiling at the sales guy. Their coffee holds disappeared. I watched the breakup happen in calendar blocks. Less overlap, then none. He started sitting farther away in meetings. She stopped eating in the kitchen. She ate at her desk, notebook open, pen moving like she was keeping herself alive with ink. People started calling her intense, like being cornered and fighting your way out is a personality flaw. And I kept going. Not every day, just enough. Enough to keep her off balance. Enough to remind myself I could. Enough to keep the office story about her. Scattered, slipping, unreliable. Not about the quiet guy in IT who still had her window open. I still do patches and password resets like I'm a good employee. I still smile when someone thanks me. I still sit through security training about least privilege and nod like I'm clean. Then I swivel back, open the console, and check her calendar like it's mine. She walks past me and thanks me sometimes. I'm not like a decent guy. I go back to my screen.